Guys, in this video I'll show you how to use this jig I designed. So first thing is to make sure you got all the jig parts printed. First is the feeder, the wire feeder. Next is this extension. You can use a non-3D printed one. And then the mandrel. So you're going to, on this bottom surface here where the support interface touched it, you want to make sure that's nice and clean and no little blobs or any print defects on there. So next thing you're going to want to do is, sorry about that, you're going to want to make sure that the feeder can move freely on the jig. So after you've confirmed that, you can go and assemble the jig. So first, take your spring feeder, or your wire feeder, sorry, and you clamp it to the table, put it on the edge like this, and you're going to want to make sure it feeds correctly, so the orientation is shown. And it can be this way, can be this way, can be this way, can be any way you desire, but I'm putting it this way so you guys can see it. Make sure you have the mandrel and this thing interacting in the same way, same orientation, or else you'll have problems with damaging it. So next you can go and assemble your mandrel. So first I put on the extension. Doesn't matter which order you do this. Then in the mandrel there's about a 1/4 inch drive in here, and you put that in, and now you got your mandrel assembly. And then make sure that you can move your mandrel assembly freely through the jig. Right, now I got you guys in closer to show you how I do this. So I marked right here where our starter hole is. It's been a little distorted from use. It's alright. So basically we're going to I put a kink in this with our pliers just like this. I took the pliers and I made a kink like that. It's pretty easy, you guys can figure it out. And we're going to basically put this into here like that, but we're going to do that while this is inside of the slot, which makes it a little tricky, hard to show on camera. As you can see the mark right there. I'm going to put in my spring. And there we go. So now we're ready to start winding. Alright, so now we'll start winding. So you got that music wire in that slot, and you start turning. You turn this as so, and you can use, I hold on to here, and we start turning it. So you guys can get a better view of what I'm doing here. And here I'm winding it around, and once we get to that mark that shows that, I'll show we made one full rotation. So here we can see the mark in there where our starter hole is, and we're just going to move the spring over slightly so it makes a second coil here. You want to make sure they're not overlapping, or else you'll jam up your jig. So now in here you can see, not too well on camera, but the helix is starting here. So once you see the helix starting, you can move your music wire like this to make sure it enters the helix. And now we can start winding the full spring. Start winding the full spring. I prefer to hold it, the mandrel, with my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and hold the ratchet with my right hand. Now you can start, you don't have to guide this music wire while you're doing this. Just make sure it doesn't go in the wrong orientation, and make sure you have enough lead on the music wire so then it's not directly up against the feeder. And just keep on winding. And that box will get in the way. It's just how it is. Just make sure you're not letting it unwind at all, the jig. Always keep a hand or something to keep tension on the jig. Just make sure, also check that it's in the channel. Right, I'll change views here. Right, so now we're getting close to the end. And now we are at the end. So at how the start of this wire, we had that channel create some dead coils, so you guys can see there. Bring you guys in. You can see we got a channel just like that one over here. So what I like to do is start that channel. And once you got one revolution around that channel, I like to cut the wire at about 10 millimeters, 20 millimeters. I use these needle nose, since it's the only cutter I have that will cut this wire without damaging itself. So here we have this cut off. Now we wind the rest of this wire into the jig. So now the spring is fully formed. You can remove your ratchet. Then what I like to do is move this out. I can rotate this jig off, and we are done. So you can see at the end it didn't fully wind. That's all right. We're gonna clean this spring up, and we'll be able to use it in a magazine. All right. So now we'll clean this spring up. First thing you do is you have to remove it from this jig. What I do is, you can see it's right here where our starter hole is. I take our needle nose pliers and I pry it out of that hole. Don't worry too much about distorting the spring, it's alright. We'll clean it up. There's plenty of extra spring on this, so if you do distort the ends a bit, it's alright. Here we can see our nice smooth spring that we didn't let unwind at all or go off track, so it's nice and uniform. So what I like to do is, right about when it starts to touch itself, I mark it right there. So you can see this is about where it forms a full dead coil. I'll cut it about there. So we got a nice nice, mostly flat surface. Make sure you're wearing eye protection or aim this away from yourself. This spring fragment can fly pretty fast, pretty far. Don't want guys going blind. Can't shoot if you go blind. Right, so see, now we have this other side. Got it pretty distorted. So I'm gonna choose a point where it's mostly in the round. It's not super critical. So I'm gonna cut it right here. And now our spring is mostly round, and just to make sure, can bend this in slightly more. There we go. Great, nice cleaned up spring. Optionally, if you want it to make it a little nicer, you can bend this coil more flat and to a dead coil. Have it interface. So now we're going to want to check that our follower and our magazine base plate lock both work with this spring. So you just put this in here. Comes on and off pretty well. There's a little lock in here, right there. You're gonna go and check it works. Yep, it works. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. The spring pressure and the magazine base plate will make it straight. Check the other side. Everything works. Okay, we're good. Right, so final part, magazine assembly. You're going to want to first put in the follower. Then you're going to want to check your spring. Just see which side goes in easier. Looks like this side goes in easier. Usually the side that we started the spring on is usually the side that's more that goes into the magazine a lot easier. So we're going to put that side in, and then this is the end side where we ended the spring. We cut it off. We'll put our magazine retainer, magazine lock in there. Doesn't need to be. Right, so now we got that. Have your base plate nearby and compress the spring, put the base plate on there. Right, so now you got it even with the bottom of the magazine. Take your base plate, slide it on there, push this down so then this focus. So then this little lock clears the base plate, like so. And now you can just go and push base plate on all the way and your magazine's assembled. It's ready to go. So one check you can do, make sure everything's working fine. So you can take some sort of object and press down the follower. Make sure it moves freely, doesn't get caught up. You may need to clean up the magazine body if it does, or the follower. And now we can go and disassemble it in case you need to do that for some reason. So you can take a cartridge or a pencil, pen, whatever, or even if you have slender enough fingers, your finger, and you can press this down, and as I'm showing here, as you press it down, you put pressure on the base plate and you push it off. Follower come off, spring come out, and then follower come out. And that's it.